Welcome back, 7:11 in the morning. The fellas are in studio. Brother Mark has some time off. Brother Bobby's always so very top of mind. But we welcome in Brother Steve Keogh, Vice President of Shopo. And it's not Kamala Keogh as Vice President. Is that correct?
No, for sure not.
Okay. Just want to double check.
Okay. Caught me off guard with that one, Rick. Good morning, brother.
Good morning.
As always, happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners.
Thank you. Would you mind performing CPR on Nick after I mentioned that?
He fell over in his chair.
I know. That was interesting. Brother Nick, wish you very well as well.
Good morning. Thanks for having us back.
Roll with Shopo again. Please, a reminder, treasurer or treasurer?
Yes, State Board Treasurer now. Yeah.
Nice. Appreciate guys, as always, coming in and joining us. Listen, we haven't had a chance to chat since your take on what transpired in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's one of those moments of where were you when, and as 2 days have passed, just two, what's developed that's caught your attention? Who'd like to lead off?
Sure. I remember getting a text message from a friend saying, "Did you hear President Trump got shot?" And it's funny because I immediately thought back of when I turned the TV on, and even though the circumstances are different, I remember when the trade towers were hit by the airplanes. I remember just randomly turning the TV on and seeing that. And this moment with President Trump, I got a text message from a friend saying, "Did you hear what happened to President Trump? He got shot." And I remember staring at my phone. So that my initial response, and then I said to myself, God help us if he dies. Not to be so direct. No, if he was actually assassinated, I really feel strongly that our country would have descended to some type of civil war type of situation, and praise God, because I really think, Rick, it was divine intervention. Mm-hmm. Now that more stuff is coming out, when you talk about a high-powered rifle round traveling at so many thousand feet per second, and he just turned his head the right way and ended up missing him, but then tragically killing that 50-year-old fireman father who was heroically shielding his wife and kids from what was happening. I think I'm still processing it, actually.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, as an American and somebody that works in law enforcement, we need some answers as to how this was even able to happen. I don't want to armchair quarterback anything, but I want answers. And I think the American people deserve it. And this is completely unacceptable. The fact that we have a president, whether you like a former president, whether you agree with what he's saying or not, you do not get to assassinate. The next step I have, and this is just me just rambling off, the Secret Service is probably one of the most elite law enforcement agencies that we have. At least that's the perception. I think we need some answers as to what happened. And maybe the Secret Service cannot share that publicly, and that's fine. But I'm in shock that someone was able to get on a roof with a lawn gun and able to even fire a shot. I've worked with, not directly, but I was on the motorcycle unit when Obama was president and the Secret Service would come to town. These men and women are at the top of their game, and the briefings that we had were extremely clear, and they have technology and people and abilities that are just exceptional. There was obviously a breakdown. And I don't mean to ramble, Rick. I'm so glad that he's alive, because if something would have happened to our president, the 45th president, I think we would have been in real big trouble as a country. Mm-hmm. I think we have some things going on, not to get too far down the rabbit hole, But we need some answers because that should have never happened. I follow Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, former NYPD officer, and I follow him on some certain social media pages. And some of the things that he's been sharing with his transparency are a little bit disconcerting.
Appreciate that. I call upon you to share those with us in a moment.
Yeah.
Brother Nick.
Well, I got home from work that day and didn't know. It had already been about 3 hours, I think, and my wife told me that it happened. And I remember being in complete disbelief because it just seemed unfathomable. Political associations or opinions aside, it's like Steve said, when someone actually takes the step of making the decision to assassinate a political figure, it is revealing of a breakdown in morality and civility within a country itself, especially one like the United States, where we pride ourselves on democracy and freedom of expression, but at the same time in a controlled, responsible way. I don't have any experience on any presidential protection details. When President Obama used to visit, when he was the president, he would come here regularly every December, which is probably one of the things Steve had to participate in. I remember it being difficult for us in patrol because we were so short-staffed at the time that what resources we did have were often being divided and subdivided in order to get out in the field and provide the extra amount of security that a president is entitled to and actually needs, obviously, no matter where they go, because as Saturday revealed, you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But I am very shocked, and I'm trying to be patient with answers because I do know as a law enforcement officer that big situations often take time to muddle through to figure out what the actual answers are. And I do predict, just like everybody else in the world, that there will always be people that will never be satisfied with whatever answers come out of this situation. Ironically, and this is extremely ironic, we started off last week's show with a conversation about the Frankenheimer film, Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
Friday daytime, I was watching outtakes from Oliver Stone's JFK, unused outtakes, and then thinking about his sequel film, which was, I think, Through the Looking Glass.
Yes.
Was what it was called. And then a day later, we have this. So weird timing for me personally.
Yeah, understand, definitely. So one thing that has been shared in media is Secret Service is alluding to a breakdown with local law enforcement. That's what the headline is. The criticisms or the deflection or what have you. I'll get the formal attribution here in a moment. But if we are talking about protocols, what is the role of local law enforcement during a presidential or other dignitary visit?
I really hope that that's not their final answer from the Secret Service. To disparage local law enforcement or to somehow transfer blame to the local county or city police officers that were at that event, I think would be a little bit irresponsible, Rick. The Secret Service is the primary agency to protect the president, and in this case, President Trump, the former president. And they basically share with us at the local level some of what they need to do, mainly when it comes to movements and location. And we primarily provide either transportation services, whether it's motorcade, escorts to get through the city. But as far as telling us specifically how they protect the president and what they do, they're pretty tight-lipped about it. But I'll share this with you, Rick. When I was on the motorcycles and we were escorting Obama, they made it very clear that the motorcycles need to pass on a certain... They made it very clear, Rick, how's this, that if there was something they didn't like that an officer wearing the uniform was doing, they wouldn't hesitate to neutralize any threat they thought was possible. Basically, it was, we're not going to ask any questions. If we perceive that somebody is a threat to the president, we're taking them out, and we'll ask questions later. So I'm really hoping, because I'm not here to defend the Secret Service. I think we need answers as a country, but I will tell you that to put it on the local law enforcement, negative. And if you want to say, oh well, we were supposed to have a beat cop sit in the area of that tower or whatever. Let's just, generally speaking, we take a back seat. The Secret Service does what they do. They include us somewhat, but that would be really unfortunate if they're trying to point fingers at local law enforcement. Because I know you saw this ad. What was the counter sniper doing on the roof? Mm-hmm. I know we've seen that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, 100 yards, even a terrible sniper could do a 500-yard shot. What are you talking about? Like, I really hope that they're not turning this around.
The one report that emanated was that a local law enforcement officer encountered the shooter before the shooting. And when he encountered him, the shooter began shooting. Now, this is all the initial reports and the sourcing of such. I cautioned our listeners in the Saturday broadcast, get ready, because there's going to be a whole cloud of different this, with maybe lack of or no specific attribution. So I don't want to traffic in hearsay. It's in the public domain, which means other folks are absorbing this. So to get a perspective on what initial reports are, I think can be relevant. Maybe the first question is, what source of affirmation would you trust to say what had taken place?
That's the $1 million question right there, Rick. Yeah. Has the Secret Service, has the director of the Secret Service come out and actually made some type of statement?
I don't have the attribution to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that they're not going to be able to comment about what they're doing, but I think it would be more than appropriate for the director of that agency to at least come on. I don't know if she has yet, but since the president's already talked about it, I think the director needs to at least be available or at least make an appearance, and I don't know if that's happened yet, Rick.
Nick?
Well, I can tell you again, I've never been on a presidential protection detail, so I don't have firsthand experience. But when I was in patrol and the president would be in town, I think the Honolulu Police Department took it very seriously in the sense that everybody and anybody who was a sworn officer that had any type of specialized training, whether it be a solo bike officer, rapid deployment force, so on, they were basically 24/7, tied to that presidential detail and whatever the detail needed until the detail was out of town. Mm-hmm. And those of us who were in patrol were basically told, this is the way it's going to go because the president is here and he's the priority. And sorry, but you have to make do with what you have left over. And for a week and a half or 2 weeks, that's what we did.
Yeah. But Rick, I'm sorry. I have to address the elephant in the room. Okay. I find it hard. I find it hard to accept that a 20-year-old young man would be able to get as close to the president as he did and get that shot off. This is just not making sense to me. I've been a part of the presidential motorcades and the process when they've come here. The Secret Service is outstanding. I mean, and disclaimer, President Trump is currently not the current president. So there's probably protocols and staffing and things in place that a former president maybe does not get. But I just don't understand how this 20-year-old young man was able to do what he did. And it's mind-blowing to me that this kid is 100 yards from the platform where the 45th president is speaking. And again, I'm not trying to disparage anything. I'm just saying, as an American citizen, how does that happen? And I'm sure so many people have this same question. How is that even possible? And then there was something, Rick, again, not to traffic in hearsay, and I don't know if that's true. I was watching some things where the Secret Service counter sniper made a statement, or again, he didn't, but that was going around that he was told not to take the shot. Now, again, that's something else that might not be verified. But again, I just being in law enforcement, I don't understand how a 20-year-old young man gets on a building to have a line of sight to be able to shoot a long gun at the 45th president of the United States. I don't understand how that even happens.
The documented by those on the scene who attended the rally, who saw the gunman, plain sight, minutes, not just fleeting glimpse, watching the gunman position himself on the building and relaying information to officers on the site. That to me is the most curious. And the people, it's not just one, there's several that are saying he was right there. We were looking right at him. And that to me is fortifying your concern and your statements, because I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer by any means. Former president, Secret Service, security issues, and the tone and tenor of the nation, not just in dialogue, but by policy statement, that we have an elevated domestic terror threat not heightened since 9/11. So the environment, we all know we're in a tense time. To what you said, how, with an AK style long rifle, a kid can get to the top of a building unimpeded and set up and take a shot? What? It just, sorry, doesn't make sense. Somebody explain how this is possible. That's it.
100%.
That's it. 7:28 in the morning. Now, there'll be those, you're a bunch of conspiratorial nut jobs, bunch of right-wingers. You're going to find, shut up. These are questions that are based through the prism of experience as law enforcement on your side and somebody who's old and is inquisitive as an American citizen.
And you know, Rick, just to switch it for a minute, I know that let me just say it, that's why standards and training cannot be lowered to fill positions. And I think about how we have a staffing crisis here locally with the county police departments. We cannot, and we have not, let me just give that disclaimer. It just goes to, even if staffing issues are challenging, you have to make sure that people have the training and the skill set to do the job, and standards are not lowered.
The Secret Service director is Kimberly Cheatle, Cheatle. She's expected to address the security issues in the attempt on President Trump on Saturday. And she's not, from what I'm seeing here, in regard to the latest, focus and attention coming from her office now is the RNC in Milwaukee. Ensuring the levels, ensuring the staffing, that's what is being related from her office. I don't see any statement. I don't hear any, but of all people, Homeland Security Director Mayorkas, he came out and said, Secret Service. And so internally, there are those that are at least asking the question, but whom do we believe when they're answered? That's kind of the struggle I'm struggling with. The fact that we're at a point in our history that on something that is ecumenically affecting our country, there's still that cynicism that goes to who can I believe.
And we don't want to look vulnerable. We don't want to look vulnerable. The whole world is watching that. It's not only us as American citizens that are saying, how did this 20-year-old young man get to do what he did? How about the rest of the world? How about the people that want to do us harm? That's another thing, Rick, that and so you're saying, sorry, she's not going to speak on this as the director of the Secret Service until Saturday?
No.
Did she make a public statement, Rick?
I'm looking right now,
yeah,
and this is what I've got. And this is a 4-hour ago report. And what it has here, the shooting at a Pennsylvania rally underscored security concerns for elected leaders, ... There's no particular statement in this report that there have been any official statements from Secret Service, her, the director. She said in a statement, let me see, she said in a statement today, Monday, that the Secret Service will participate fully in the review and work with congressional committees on any oversight action. And those were called for within 10 minutes of the unfortunate event. And that's what she says here. The Secret Service this is a quote, Secret Service is working with all involved federal, state, local agencies to understand what happened, how it happened, and how we can prevent an incident like this from ever taking place again, Cheetle said today. That's all I got. That's what she said. Brother Nick, I'm going to go to a break, but first, your thoughts.
Well, again, I mean, it's going to be a long time, I think, until we get some final resolution to this. And even then, I don't think there's going to be, I think there's going to be a group of the population that's never going to be satisfied with it. And that's fine. I think it's okay to continue to question things of this nature. I can only imagine what it must have been to have been a law enforcement officer there on the ground at that time. I hope that, given the complexity of the situation and obviously the opinions that are coming out, that they were at least trying to do the best with what they had. I don't really feel comfortable making comment on it because I just don't know much about their job or what they do. And being a fellow law enforcement officer, I want to believe that they were just making do with what they had. So I'll give them that benefit of the doubt. But I have a lot of questions in my mind as well.
Yeah.
And I'm eager to see what comes out of this.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the conversation. Perspectives as well. We're going to continue after the bottom of the hour news. Telephone lines are open. If you would like to join in, be a part of the chat, feel free to do so. 521-8383. But we'll take that break now. We'll return. It's a pleasure to be with you. 7:41 in the morning. It is the Shopo Hour at 521-8383. Gentlemen, our headphones, please, because we're going to the phone lines. And by the way, a line open if you want to join us, 521-8383. Topicality is top of mind with what is transpiring. And Jim out in Kailua, you are first up. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Rick. Good morning, officers. I have a question. There's rumor has it, or the story is that a policeman went up the ladder after being told that there was a shooter on the roof, and the gunman pointed the gun at him, and he came back down. What should he have done? Should he have just taken the guy out? If he shoots, do the counter snipers think he's a bad guy as well and go after him? Or should he have just shot his gun in the air to alert that, maybe the Secret Service would have protected Trump better at the time? What would you have done, or what is the protocol for something like that?
And prefacing, if this actually happened, but giving that scenario that Jim raises, thoughts?
Jim, thanks for the call and the participation. I can't see any law enforcement officer that identified that there was an individual with a long gun pointing in the direction of the president that would actually not take the appropriate steps to neutralize that threat, I can't imagine in any reality that that individual would go back down the ladder and not attempt to neutralize the threat. If you're asking me directly, Jim, what I would do, I would use the appropriate amount of force. And the use of force continuum dictates that if somebody has a firearm, then I am more than justified with the use of force continuum to use my firearm to protect a human life.
Nick?
I agree with Steve. I think common sense would tell you in a situation like that you would probably have specific instructions on who would be allowed in that area and whether or not there would be any other law enforcement in that area. You would be able to recognize them immediately if you saw them armed, and you would probably be able to determine very quickly if that person was supposed to be there with a firearm or not. And if they weren't, then your obligation would be to engage and neutralize that threat.
Yeah. And we don't, also too, Rick, we don't do any type of warning shots like that. Yeah, we're not trained to do that.
I want to thank you very much for the call. Indeed, I'm going to go to network news. United States Secret Service Director, House Committee briefing. Let's see what's going on.
Houses, and you can imagine, given the urgency and just frankly the shock at what happened 2 days ago, trying to figure out what went wrong and what maybe needs to be addressed. And I'm sure those investigations will go on for not hours, but not days, but for some time now.
Yeah, Senator, good to have you on the program. Rep. Byron Donalds was on with Bill and Dana this morning, just sort of adding to the questions, the growing questions all of us have. Listen.
We need the names of which agents were doing the advance work, who spotted what are the timelines to really get to what happened here, so you can truly make sure something like this doesn't occur again, or at the very minimum that the Secret Service on an operational basis, step by step, is making sure that you contain an area as best as you can.
Do you trust we're going to get to the bottom of this?
Senator John
I think
Cornyn.
we will, but it is shocking that this shooter was just a little over 100 yards away. We are here at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, and I can tell you that security here is very, very tight, and nobody could get nearly that close to any one of the elected officials or other potential targets. So it seems very striking that that this shooter was able to get that close, because obviously that's a failure on somebody's part.
Well, just listening in, and as our friends voiced during the program, same concerns articulated by Senator John Cornyn. He's Republican of Texas. Final thoughts on this, and then we'll take a traffic break, move on to some topicality.
It's unacceptable that this occurred. We have to protect elected leaders. Somebody has to be held accountable for the failure. I'm not trying to disparage, but we need answers because this cannot happen, and it should not happen. There is no way a 20-year-old young man with a rifle should get the jump and be in a position to attempt to assassinate the 45th president of the United States.
Brother Nick, final thought?
It's been a couple of days. It's going to take longer for us to get all of these questions answered. However, I think all the questions that are being asked are fair ones, and they deserve an answer. We're obligated to find those answers to do better. Right now, the focus should be to ensure that the rest of this election and the future afterwards is safe, that whoever the candidates are get all of the protection that we can possibly give them so this doesn't happen again, and we learn from our mistakes, and we do better, and we move on.
Telephone number 521-8383 with time remaining 7:47. This is the Shopo Hour. Wow, it is the times in which we lead and in which we live as well. Donald Trump says we're going to get a VP today, so we're all anticipatory. I'm going to cover a lot of ground in the next hour, but while we have our brothers in studio, let me turn to a couple of things that have made news as recently as on this morning's news. If you could help us understand if you are aware of what took place in Kapolei with a suspect who is being processed who was able to escape, but escape briefly. Is there a protocol that took place that something may have been left out, or an aberration, or something? Because, and by the way, let me just say, with all those arrests, it's very rare that a scenario like this happens. But what possibly could have taken place?
It is a rare scenario in the Honolulu Police Department, but unfortunately, as we learned this weekend, anything can happen at any time, right? So the suspect was caught and is back in custody. I know that for sure. I don't know many details about the situation per se. There will, of course, be an internal investigation administratively to see where the failures are and what went wrong, so we can tighten that up. And, if officers made mistakes and have to be disciplined, well, then we're going to have to go through that process as well of mitigating that or trying to figure out a way through it. It is possible for a detainee to escape. However, security of detainees is extremely important. If I can't comment per se on any specifics, I think that if Arthur Logan is here on Thursday, maybe he could give you more comment on it. Mm-hmm. I'd leave that to him in the department. But again, the suspect is back in custody, and we're just going to have to see what the fallout is from it. To be frank,
full transparency, Rick, and I'm not saying this with any level of sarcasm. Clearly, that's not supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. The Capillay Receiving Desk has operated for several decades with a high level of professionalism, and this is not something, obviously, that occurs on a regular basis. The officers there are well trained. The supervisors are talented, and they know what they're doing. But clearly there was a breakdown. I give credit to HPD for immediately not keeping it from the public. They made it known very quickly that we had somebody that we needed to get back into custody, even if it causes a little black eye to us momentarily. We didn't hesitate. The agency, Honolulu PD, went full force. Hey, we have an escape. We put out a description, and we put it out there. To Nick's point, this is obviously something that is going to be investigated. It's not supposed to happen. It shouldn't happen. And we'll I'm confident that those within HPD will identify what occurred and additional training, whatever's needed to make sure something like that doesn't happen again.
The news reports indicated that it appeared to be exactly as you described. It was a blip. An incoming desk officer, there was a security door, and the door was opened, or the lock was beeped or buzzed through, according to reports, and that's when the suspect just said, well, I'm going to go and take advantage of this, and even scaled a 15-foot barrier in. But
what's interesting, Rick, again, I believe this individual was arrested for some type of court or TRO violation. And when you do an escape like that, that's a C felony. That's a 10-year charge. So this individual has just basically said, I want to be incarcerated, because a TRO violation is not a C felony. And when you escape like that from police custody, you're looking at a felony charge, which is up to 10 years. Oh. So when he is caught, and believe you me, the plainclothes cops that we have in the different districts, the officers that don't wear the uniform but do some special work, he's going to get found. And when he does, he's going to get an escape charge added to whatever else, couple warrants, whatever, that's small. TRO violation, that's serious, but the escape charge, that's a 10-year deal, maximum.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that he's captured, and it was in relatively swift form. 7:54. There was a headline that appeared, and if I could share it with you, quoting police union fears HPD can't recruit its way out of its staffing crisis. Unquote. Headline, Hawaii Free Press. Can you share, first of all, if that's an accurate headline? And secondly, information behind this headline that perhaps we could learn together. And it's 7:55 in the morning.
A lot to talk about in a short time. First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to have Sybil B interview us on that. Really appreciate it. excellent article by Honolulu Chapter Chair John Fry. Yes, we are worried about that. Obviously, we've put a lot of emphasis and a lot of pressure on the Honolulu Police Department as far as recruitment goes. The second part of it is retention. We've been saying that forever and ever and ever. You can't hire your way out of this staffing crisis because the numbers don't lie. We need to hire at least 120 people per year in order to keep the staffing level where it is right now. And by the way, we're between 430 and 440 officers short. It's statistically proven that we're not hiring that many people per year, even with the bump up in emphasis, the hiring bonuses, and so on. We're just not meeting those numbers. So how do we shave off? We're trying. The goal is to do it on the back end by keeping people from leaving to other jurisdictions or retiring immediately when they're eligible. That's the next step, and the Honolulu Police Department's really got to step up its game and address those problems, because this isn't going anywhere. I'm just going to say it frankly. We're going to be 500 officers short next year, the way this number goes. It's just going to happen. No matter what you say, the way the current trend is going, this is just going to happen. I'd also like to say this union is not manufacturing a public safety crisis. We've been accused by the Honolulu Police Department of manufacturing a public safety crisis and overinflating the staffing problem for the Honolulu Police Department. We've also been accused of using quote-unquote mainland tactics in order to do this. And all we're doing here is revealing the truth so that the public knows just how bad the situation is. And we get all the help that we can possibly get to motivate the current administration in this department to actually address this problem.
Steve?
I think Nick, being that we have limited time, I think Nick was very thorough in his discussion. The article is accurate. And again, there are several reasons why law enforcement agencies are understaffed. Okay, we're not headhunting. We're not trying to target leadership in a way that is disparaging. We're simply highlighting that we need to talk about this. It is happening, and we appreciate the effort that has been made to enhance recruitment. Let's give that as a disclaimer. But to Nick's point, we are trying to fill a bucket that has a hole at the bottom, and we really need to try to look and see how we can keep talented men and women that have worn the uniform for a long time and get them to work past 25 years of service. That's key. Now, how we do that, we can come together and we're happy to have discussion about that. But we need to slow down the amount of retirements while at the same time getting people interested in this profession.
But the key and we have just seconds remaining, and just a reminder, according to this Civil Beat report, the department has seen an uptick in applications. It received 1,171 applications between January and June of 2024, which is above year to date in the same time. But making an application and realizing a hire out of that number is apparently a daunting task. We're already at the top. I know that this required a great deal of additional time, but in 20 seconds or so, retention. You have officers that have served decades, and it's a laborious, demanding job. To have them continue after 10, 15, 20 plus years, what is the key to retain?
These officers that wear the uniform, Rick, they love the police department. They love being the police. They love the community. The key is they simply need to feel appreciated, and they need to have a level of motivation, and they need to just be appreciated. That's the takeaway. If they're appreciated and they feel that way, they're going to stay.
Steve Keogh, Brother Nick, Brother Steve, thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate it very much. We will see you so soon.